tactical elements that help you quite a lot when you play chess to put pressure on your opponent are pins and forks. So here is an example of a pin. After the introductory moves e4, e5, knight f3, d6, if white plays a developing move, if white plays a developing move like bishop c4 and black responds with bishop to g4, this would be a pin. Would it be impossible for this knight to move?
Unless he wants to lose his queen. No.
That's right. So if the knight moves, the queen will go. And this makes this a very powerful pin. It is not as powerful as pinning the piece against the king though. So let's suppose that we have an opening that looks like this. d4, black plays the move knight f6, white continues with c4, black plays e6, white plays knight c3, and now black is pinning this knight against the king by playing bishop to b4. Is it possible for this knight to move away?
No, because then the king would be in check.
Then the king would be in check, and that would be an illegal thing in chess. So it is not possible for this knight to pin. It is not possible for this knight to move away. It is pinned against the king, and it will have to remain where it is. The piece that is doing the pinning, in this case the bishop, is always stronger than the piece that is being pinned, because this bishop still has lots of activity. It can move around. The knight cannot move anywhere. So this would be an example of a pin against the king. Another thing that I mentioned at the beginning of this segment are forks. And a fork is when you attack two things at once, typically by using your knight, even though forks can be done with other pieces as well. So let's say if the king is on a square like f4 and the queen is on the square like b4, then by putting the knight on d5, this knight would at the same time attack the queen and attack the king, and this would be an example of a fork. Sometimes, if you're not careful when you play an opening, a fork can easily decide the game. So let's give you a couple of examples. If white starts the game with e4 and black plays e5, would that be a good way to open up the game?
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be a very good game for white and for black. So they're both fighting for the center at the moment. Knight f3, and what can black do after knight f3?
Black can play knight c6.
And that would be an excellent move. Knight f3 is attacking that pawn on e5. By playing knight c6, black is protecting that pawn and also taking another central square under its control. Bishop b5. This is the so-called Ruy Lopez. Every opening has a name, and the name of this opening is Ruy Lopez. Bishop b5. Black's next move can be knight to f6, attacking the pawn, and one simple way to protect the pawn would be with another pawn. Would it be a good idea for black to now take that pawn?
No, because it's defended by d3.
Yes. So if you take this pawn on e4, white would take back, and then you would lose the knight that is worth 3 pawns or 3 points for just 1. Well, if black plays a move like this, is that a good developing move?
No, that's not really developing. It's just going back where it was.
Well, knight e7 indeed would not be a very good move, because the knight is now blocking the queen, it's blocking the bishop, and instead of developing other pieces, black is playing with the same piece for the second time. So that would be a mistake. But the real question here would be, is it good or not for white to now take this pawn that is left unguarded? One thing that you have to keep in mind, that in the opening you're trying to develop as soon as possible, and there are many situations when just grabbing a loose pawn here or there can be very, very dangerous. In this case, black can play c6, attacking your bishop and also opening the path for the queen. What happens if white simply moves the bishop out of the way after c6? What is black going to do?
Black could just attack, he could defend, and black could also play here.
That would be a very good developing move. It would open up the bishop. It would attack white's bishop. e5, very good developing move. But this move c6, it not only attacked the bishop, it also opened up the diagonal for the queen, the diagonal that also leads towards the king. Now, if this bishop moves out of the way, we can fork the king and the knight by attacking them at the same time with the queen. Which move would do it? Yes, sir.
Queen a5 will do the move.
Queen a5, and from a5 the queen is attacking the king. It is also attacking the knight. Because it's a check, white really does not have time to save this knight. White would have to move knight to c3 or maybe bishop d2 or some other move to get out of check. And then with the next move, black is going to take this knight and be a piece up. Let's backtrack a couple of moves. So if the bishop moves out of the way, queen a5 check, the knight is lost. Correct?
Yeah.
Correct. But what if knight goes to c4? So what white is saying basically, okay, well, two pieces will be under attack. I can't really save both of them. I'll just move the knight out of the way. Well, surely it would be a very, very good idea to take the bishop now, wouldn't it, Jesur?
Yeah, it would, because you just won a piece.
Well, by taking on b5, black is winning a piece. And that indeed would be a really good thing if it were not for this checkmate on d6, which would instantly win the game for white. So instead of taking the bishop and allowing the knight to go to d6 and deliver the smothered checkmate, black would have to play a move that stops this knight from going to d6 and gives the checkmate. So what can black do in this situation?
Black could just maybe protect that spot where the knight wants to go.
Well, queen c7 would be a good way of protecting that spot. By the way, that's not the only way to protect that spot. Other ways would be simply to move the knight out of the way, and now the bishop is protecting the spot d6, stopping the knight from going there. Another way would be to play a move like d5, in which case the pawn is attacking the knight and another pawn is attacking the bishop. But the move that Jesur suggested, queen to c7, is a very good move. Now, if the bishop moves out of the way, the only square for this bishop to go is a4. You have a situation now that the bishop and the knight are relatively close together, and it is possible for black to pin those two pieces by playing which move?
By playing b5, it will pin both pieces.
Well, b5 is attacking both the bishop and the knight. And keep in mind that the pawn on b5 is protected by the pawn on c6, so if the bishop takes, the pawn can recapture, and white has just lost a piece. So, in this very short game, there was quite a number of little tricks that both white and black had to be careful about. When black played the move knight to e7, he presented white with the opportunity to take a pawn for free. But it seems that it's a poisonous pawn, because by taking it, white makes it possible for black to play c6, open the diagonal leading towards the king, attack the bishop, and put two pieces in danger. Then white is defending by putting the knight on c4, threatening this checkmate. So this is something now that black has to be very careful about. Queen c7, very good move, stopping the knight from going there. And when the bishop moves out of danger, it really isn't completely out of danger, because it is possible to play b5, fork out those two pieces, and one of them is going to fall.